Okay, so we're going to look at developing strong thesis statements. Now I'm here at Purdue OWL, one of our usual resources, and you can see the URL. Well, it's a very long URL, but I have links to this in the assignment. So just kind of follow along as I go through and reiterate some of the elements that OWL is telling us in terms of really good thesis statements for our argumentative essays. Okay, number one right here, the thesis statement or main claim must be debatable. Okay, and the way they describe it, the argumentative writing must begin with a debatable thesis or claim. In other words, the thesis must be something that people could reasonably have differing opinions on. Right, so we'll take a look at that right there. So, reasonable people can have differing opinions on this, right? Which means if we look at the next sentence, if your thesis is something that is generally agreed upon or accepted as fact, then there's no reason to try to persuade people. So, it's got to be a real argument. Okay, example of a non-debatable thesis statement. Here it is. Pollution is bad for the environment. Well, everybody knows that, so that wouldn't make a good essay topic. Who's going to say pollution is good for the environment? Nobody. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Here's a debatable thesis statement. At least 25% of the federal budget should be spent on limiting pollution. Okay, it's debatable. As it says here, reasonable people could disagree with it, right? Some people might think this is how we should spend the nation's money. Others might feel that we should be spending more on education or less. It's an interesting number, 25%, maybe more, maybe less. We can have a debate on it. Thinking people can disagree. This is debatable. Okay. Here's another example of a debatable thesis statement. America's anti-pollution efforts should focus on privately owned cars. Okay, maybe not. Maybe it should focus on industry. Maybe it should focus on something else. So, I think people could have different opinions on this, but it's definitely debatable. And I think there's going to be evidence for this. And for the 25%, there's going to be evidence. So that's what we're looking for, the kinds of thesis statements where there's going to be evidence available and a normal range of people could agree or disagree. Okay, next it has to be narrow, right? We can't tackle too much in 5 paragraphs. So we're going to keep it very focused. Here's one that's too broad, right? Drug use is detrimental to society. That's too broad. As it says here, what do we mean by drugs? Are we talking about medicines, illegal drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, illegal drugs? That's just, not sure, right? How are they detrimental, right? In what ways are they detrimental? You notice here, is it causing deaths, moral climate, economy, violence? So, not clear. Here's a good point, because we use this word a lot. What does the author mean by society? Is this America? Is it global? Are we talking about children, adults, everybody? So society, we like to use that word in our essay writing, but sometimes it's not very focused. So what would be better? Well, we see down below, right? A narrow or focused thesis. Illegal drug use is detrimental because it encourages gang violence. Okay, it's specifically illegal drug use. It's detrimental, which is a little bit more focused. Why? Because we're focusing on gang violence here. So that's suitable for a thesis for a 5-paragraph essay. Okay. Here's another one. We have narrow debatable thesis 1 and 2. Let's take a look at these. Narrow debatable thesis 1. At least 25% of the federal budget should be spent on helping upgrade business to clean technologies researching renewable energy sources, and planting more trees in order to control or eliminate pollution. Okay, so it's not just 25% of the budget, but exactly what you want to talk about. And in fact, you've got a point there, helping upgrade businesses to clean technologies. Second point, researching renewable clean energy sources. And third point, planting more trees. So there's your 3 body paragraphs of your 5-paragraph essay. So that's very common that the essay will list the 3 elements that will be discussed in the 3 body paragraphs. Okay, number 2, right? Debatable thesis number 2. America's anti-pollution efforts should focus on privately owned cars because it would allow most citizens to contribute to national efforts and care about the outcomes. Okay, so anti-pollution is focused on privately owned cars, right? So that's the area that we're looking at, not other areas. Why? Well, we have a reason here. It would allow most citizens to contribute to national efforts and care about the outcomes. Okay. So again, it's not just blandly about we need to fight pollution, but we have specifics already mentioned in the thesis. You notice here that we have a little blurb here about qualifiers, right? Those are words. We have typically, generally, usually, on average. These words also help limit the scope of your claim by allowing for the almost inevitable exceptions to the rules. We've got that in our limit of acknowledgments paragraph because nothing is perfect. Whatever you come up with, there's going to be exceptions, there's going to be varying circumstances, and so we're going to work on that specifically as a paragraph later on. Okay, a couple of different types of claims here you can see in this section. Definition, cause and effect, value, solutions, or policies. This is the last section here, so we're almost done. This is maybe, I'm not going to really focus on working on each one of these, but just to kind of let you know the kinds of thesis statements there are. We'll take a look at this. Claims of fact or definition. These claims argue about what the definition of something is or whether something is a settled fact. For example, while some pundits have framed a 4-year college education as something necessary for adult success, this notion should not be treated as a given. Maybe you don't need college for adult success in life. Okay, that's interesting. Something that we thought of as a fact maybe is not a fact. Another type, cause and effect. They argue that one person, thing, or event caused another thing or event. Okay, let's take a look. Federal student loan policies have contributed to widespread growth in college tuition. Cause and effect. Federal student loan policies cause the effect, growth in college tuition. So student loans have made college more expensive. Is that true? Just because you say it is doesn't make it so. That's a cause and effect statement that needs to be proven. That makes it a thesis, an arguable thesis. Okay, claims about values, another type. What something is worth, whether we value it or not, how we would rate or categorize something. Okay, take a look. The student debt crisis is one of the most serious problems facing the country today. So it's this section here, one of the most serious problems. That's debatable. Someone might say, yes, it is. Someone might say, no, it really isn't. So if that's your argument that it's that serious, well, then you got to prove it. That's what your essay is going to do. So definitely acceptable. Finally, claims about solutions or policies. Okay, they argue for or against a certain solution or policy approach. Interesting. Here's the example. Rather than encouraging all students to attend 4-year colleges, we should instead emphasize the validity of 2-year colleges. Sounds good to me. Technical schools and trade schools as well. Okay, so the solution, right, the idea that all students should attend 4-year colleges, we're saying, no, that's not true. Instead, we're going to look at 2-year colleges, right? The argument is technical schools and trade schools. This is a possibility too. I notice here that we have we. Well, in my class, we're only using third person writing, so that wouldn't be correct. Otherwise, that's a nice example. Okay, so those, like I said, these last four, I'm not going to do so much focus on, but it's this previous work to make your thesis sentence narrowed and debatable. That's what we're going to work on in this exercise.